If you had a coffee with milk this morning, or cereal, or just a cold glass of milk, straight from the fridge, before your brain was even fully awake, stop for a second, because what you just did, casually, half asleep, without a single thought, would have been impossible for almost every human being who ever lived. Your body just broke down a sugar it was never supposed to be able to handle as an adult. It didn't cramp, it didn't rebel. Your stomach didn't twist, it just took the milk and dealt with it, quietly, the way it deals with anything else. And that small, boring, unremarkable moment is the result of one of the fastest and strangest changes in the entire history of our species. You didn't earn it. You didn't train for it. You inherited it from a mutation. We throw that word around like an insult. Mutant. It sounds like something went wrong, like a glitch in the code, a monster in a comic book, a mistake the universe made and forgot to fix. But that is not what the word means. A mutation is just a change, a tiny edit in the instructions that build you. And the thing almost nobody says out loud is that you are absolutely covered in them. You are a walking stack of recent edits, some only a few thousand years old, which in the timescale of evolution is basically last week. And here's the part people get wrong. They think evolution is a thing that happened. Past tense, somewhere back in the caves with the spears and the fire, and then it politely stopped the moment we built houses and invented Tuesdays. It didn't stop. It never stopped. It is still running right now in you. And it is not one change. It is never one change. It is layer on top of layer, each one stranger than the one before. There is a gene that some humans quietly borrowed from a completely different, extinct species. There is an entire group of people who grew bigger organs to survive underwater. And underneath all of it, there is one fact so strange it took me a while to actually believe it. So let's go through them, one at a time. Because by the end, the word normal is going to stop meaning anything at all. Start with the milk. It is the cleanest example we have. Every mammal on Earth drinks milk as a baby. And every single one of them, humans included, is built to switch that ability off after weaning. Your body makes an enzyme called lactase. Its only job is to break down lactose, the sugar in milk. And once you are old enough to eat real food, the gene that produces lactase is supposed to go quiet, power down, switch off. For the vast majority of human history, that is exactly what it did. An adult who drank milk got sick, bloating, cramps, the works. That was simply the default setting for our entire species. Then, around 10,000 years ago, something shifted. Humans began keeping animals, goats, sheep, cattle, and in those herding populations, a mutation appeared. A tiny change in the DNA near the lactase gene, and it did exactly one thing. It jammed the switch in the on position. The people who carried it could drink milk as adults and feel nothing. In a world of failed harvests and long, brutal winters, that was not a small thing. That was a private, walking food supply that everyone around you literally could not stomach. So it spread, fast. And here is the detail that should give you chills. The geneticist Sarah Tishkoff and her team showed in a 2007 study in Nature Genetics that this didn't happen only once. It happened separately, independently. Different mutations in Africa and in Europe arriving at the exact same answer because the need was that strong. Evolution wrote the same solution twice, in two different places, with two different lines of code. So if you can drink milk today and feel fine, you are carrying the echo of a Stone Age herder who got lucky with their dice. And most of the world, by the way, still can. You might be the unusual one. But a stuck switch is the gentle version. The next one is genuinely stranger. Because some humans are not just running their own code, they are running someone else's. High on the Tibetan plateau, people live, farm, and raise their children at altitudes above 4,000 meters. The air up there is so thin that most visitors get dizzy and sick just walking to the shop. Lowland bodies panic. They overproduce red blood cells, the blood thickens, and it becomes dangerous. But the people who have lived there for thousands of years don't do that. Their bodies handle the thin air calmly, in a way the rest of us simply cannot copy. And in 2014, a team led by Emilia Huerta Sanchez in the journal Nature found out why. There is a version of a gene called EPAS1 that controls how your body reacts to low oxygen. And the Tibetan version of it did not come from the main human family tree at all. It came from the Denisovans. The Denisovans were a separate kind of human, not us. A different branch, now completely extinct, gone. A species we only know about from a handful of bone fragments in a single Siberian cave. At some point, deep in the past, our ancestors met them. and had children with them. And a useful little piece of Denisovan DNA got handed down through the generations, and natural selection looked at it and decided to keep it. So when a Tibetan child is born today, already built for the roof of the world, part of the reason is a gift from a vanished species that died out tens of thousands of years ago. And that variant is one of the fastest spreading genetic changes ever found in any human population. Evolution didn't just keep it, it lunged for it. Now here is where it stops feeling like history and starts feeling like something you could almost stand there and watch. In the warm waters around Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines, there are people called the Bajau, the sea nomad, and they live in the most literal sense of the phrase on the ocean. They dive deep on a single held breath for most of the working day. Some of them stay under for minutes at a stretch, at depths that would send a trained diver to the hospital. In 2018, a researcher named Melissa Ilardo, then at the University of Copenhagen, scanned their bodies and their DNA and published what she found in the journal Cell. The Bajau have spleens around 50% larger than their neighbors who don't dive. And the spleen matters more than you think. When you hold your breath and your face hits cold water, your body triggers something called the diving response. Your heart slows, your blood pulls inward, and your spleen contracts, squeezing a reserve of oxygen-rich blood back into your system. A bigger spleen is, very simply, a bigger oxygen tank. And here is the part that seals it. Even the Bajau who never dive, who spend their lives on land, still have the larger spleen. So it is not exercise. It is not training. It is written into their genes. It is an adaptation to the sea in a living human population that you can measure with an ultrasound machine today, this afternoon. And it is not a one-off. In parts of Africa, people carry a genetic change that protects them against malaria, one of the deadliest diseases our species has ever faced. But this one comes with a dark twist. Inherit a single copy of the change, and you are shielded. Inherit two, one from each parent, and you get sickle cell disease, a serious and painful condition. Evolution kept the edit anyway, because in a place where malaria was everywhere, the protection was worth the gamble. That is how brutal and how honest this process really is. It does not chase perfection. It just keeps whatever helps you survive long enough to have children, costs and all, and there are more changes moving through all of us right now that we have barely begun to map. But the lesson is the same everywhere you look. The process never paused. We just stopped noticing because it moves slower than a single human life, and so it hides in plain sight. There is one last piece, and I saved it for the very end because it quietly rearranges everything that came before it. We keep using this one word: normal, the normal human, the standard model, the original version that everybody else is just a variation of. And the strangest thing that all of this adds up to when you stack it together is that there is no such thing. There is no normal human being. There never was. The person who can drink milk and the person who can't. The body built for thin mountain air and the one built for the crushing deep. The trait you carry that your neighbor doesn't. Not one of these is the real one, the default, the master copy with the rest as imitation. We are all the variation. Every single one of us is somebody's mutation that happened to work. Normal was never a fact about biology. It was just a word we used for whoever happened to be standing closest to us. So go back to this morning. The coffee, the milk, the completely forgettable fact that it didn't make you sick. That is not nothing. That is a 10,000-year-old change still quietly doing its job inside your body. A herder you will never hear about, in a place you will never see, had a child whose body did something slightly new, and the thread from that one child runs unbroken, across 100 generations all the way to your kitchen this morning in your hand. That is what mutant actually means, not a monster. Not a mistake, just someone somewhere back down the line who changed by a little, in exactly the way that let you come out as you. You are not the finished version of anything. Nobody is. You are a draft, carrying the lucky edits of everyone who came before you, and passing a few quiet new ones without ever feeling it to whoever comes next. You drank the milk this morning. Almost all of human history couldn't. And the only reason you can is that you, like every person who has ever lived, are still being written.